And welcome to the special council meeting of Wednesday the 28th of October. And the special meeting has been called to present the annual report for 2019-2020. And now it's my pleasure to call on Councillor Duff to undertake the Welcome to Country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to acknowledge country and the traditional owners of the land where we meet this morning, the Waka Waka people, and acknowledge the elders both past, present and emerging.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. I'd like to also acknowledge the work that's been undertaken by councillors in relation to pinking up the Burnett. And as those observing the meeting today will notice, we've all got our pink scarves and pink items on, so it's wonderful to see that Council and Councillor Duff and Shoemaker and Councillor Potter and everybody else, and doesn't Councillor Henshin look stunning in his pink scarf, I've got to say. So, and Councillor Henshin, if I could just mention, reported that we've had some good rain across certain parts of the region last night, unfortunately some wind and hail, but I'm sure that the primary producers will take the rain nonetheless. Yes. Thank you, Councillor Henshin. Right, well, it's now it'll be my pleasure to now present the annual report. So it's my pleasure to commend the 2019-2020 annual report to you, and in doing so acknowledge former Mayor Campbell, the former and current councillors, our Chief Executive Officer and his staff for their contribution to the South Burnett region over the course of the 2019-20 year. The annual report of Council is a legislative requirement, but more importantly, it serves to inform the community on the strategic, operational and financial performance of Council over the previous financial year. It has been my pleasure, since being elected in April of this year, to pick up where Mayor Campbell left off in working with fellow councillors and our Chief Executive Officer, Mr Mark Pitt, PSM, in guiding the delivery of the strategic priorities of Council. The 2019-20 year will be remembered for the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic. The final quarter of the financial year saw the required restrictions to public activities have a significant impact on Council and the broader economy of our region. Congratulations are very much in order for the competent manner in which the organisation of Council responded in implementing the business continuity plan and in leading the local disaster management response. Overall, significant progress has been made throughout the 19-20 year in the operational delivery of Council services through the efforts of Council's general managers and staff. Having said that, there is much more work to do under the direction of the newly elected Council. In progressing the many opportunities that are emerging for our region, I'm confident that Council has the strategic leadership and committed operational staff to see many of these opportunities come to fruition. Council continued to improve on its program of sustainable management of community assets and the delivery of essential regional services. The core business of contemporary councils includes road network development and maintenance, provision of water and wastewater, sewerage services, waste collection and disposal, community parks and gardens, planning and compliance services, along with broad community services encompassing community health and wellbeing, library services, arts, culture and regional heritage. The 19-20 year saw the continued progression of Council's road network asset management plan, which continues to be a work in progress. Water security and reliability was a priority of Council, with a successful acquisition of federal funding to progress an important water feasibility study alongside North Burnett. The livability of our region was also progressed with significant projects such as the Mergen CBD footpath redevelopment, funded jointly by Council and the Queensland Government. Council was also successful in obtaining $4.5 million from the federal government to deliver the Kingaroy Transformation Project over the next 3 financial years. These projects complemented works undertaken across the region, including the Les Muller Park redevelopment in Blackbutt and the Brisbane Street drainage in Nanango. Council ended the 19-20 financial year in a reasonably sound financial position. Council's consolidated figures include current assets, which totalled $57.63 million, including cash at bank of $47.6 million. Current liabilities totalled $17.8 million, leaving Council in a strong liquidity position. Total assets, including non-current assets such as property, plant and equipment, totalled $923 million. Total liabilities ended at $65.969 million, with long-term loans held with the Queensland Treasury Corporation down from $39.385 in 1819 to $36.535 million as at 30 June 2020. Total community equity, which is council's net assets, at 30 June 2020 was $854.354 million. It is important to recognise the funding contribution provided by the Queensland State Government and acknowledge the grants received from the federal government over the course of the 1920 year. Such funding is critical to the development of our region and has enabled the implementation of several key projects and service delivery initiatives. Moving forward, Council is committed to engaging much more actively with both levels of government to demonstrate the needs and opportunities within our region and to advocate the increasing levels of government commitment to our region's development. Over the coming term of Council, initiatives such as the development and implementation of the new 2020-25 corporate plan, progression of asset management plans across all classes of Council assets, industry-driven economic development, finalisation of the water feasibility study, town-based community development plans, along with community welfare programs, and the development of the tourism, arts, culture, and heritage sectors will form the core of Council's strategic priorities. It is my pleasure to commend the 1920 annual report to you, and in doing so acknowledge former Mayor Campbell, the former and current councillors, our Chief Executive Officer and his staff for their contribution to the South Burnett region over the course of the 1920 year. Thank you. Right, well, I would now, in accordance with the officer's recommendation, I'll move that Council adopt the South Burnett Regional Council 1920 annual report for the period 1 July 2019 to 30 June 2020. Do we have a seconder for such? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Would any councillor like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, may I?
Oh, yes, sorry, Mr. CEO. Yes, please do.
Okay, councillors, there's just a couple of points, and Mr. Mayor, with your and the meeting's consent, it would be, I would suggest that we move the annual report as amended. We've actually brought a positive this year. We brought the audit forward. So the audit was actually done earlier than it is normally done, and given that it puts a statutory timeframe on the annual report. So this report, for example, would normally be adopted, or has been normally adopted by Council in the first week of November. So it's actually been brought forward. So as far as going through it, there are a couple of typographical errors that have been through the final proofing, and also with the amendment of the meeting regulations, which we are fully compliant with. The draft was published as part of the agenda. So the draft that's published as part of the agenda will have typographical errors in it, and so they will be amended. So the resolution would be as amended, if I may. So that's the first point. The second point is there are a couple of other very minor but important just to note. The Tourism Advisory Committee was missed as off our structure on page 31, so that will be added in as to one of the council advisory committees for councillors' information. The other two that were of note, being other than typographical, was the overseas travel. Councillors, or returning councillors and also new councillors may be aware that I was successful last year. This wasn't a council sponsored trip, but I was successful through the Local Government Managers Association for the CEO exchange with New Zealand. We had the the General Manager Corporate of Whangarei Regional Council in New Zealand visit our council, and then I went. Now that was at no cost to council, but it was travel that I undertook as part of my role of CEO. So for full disclosure, whilst it wasn't a council-sponsored trip, I would like to actually add it into the report. So it's in there. And the other one is the beneficial enterprises. The Council Hospital Foundation is actually a beneficial enterprise. So it just needs to be, rather than saying pursuant to the Act, nil beneficial enterprises of the local government were conducted, it's pursuant to the Act, one beneficial enterprise, being the foundation, was conducted. So whilst they're very minor, they're important to amend. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. The motion is that we accept the annual report as amended in accordance with the statements from the CEO. And Councillor Frola, if you're happy to second that. Councillors wish to speak to the report. Thanks, Councillor Potter.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'd like to thank the staff. This is an amazing report. So if everyone has the chance to read through it at home, it really is a fantastic report, and it tells you everything we've done. So I would really again like to thank the staff for the incredible amount of effort that has gone into this from just about every single section of council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Potter. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd also like to endorse what Councillor Potter has said. This is a report card for council. It's I think that people, there's a lot of work goes into it. I do hope that anyone that's interested in the operation of council certainly should take the opportunity to have a look at it. I think that they can look at it on our website. I'm not sure if they'll be available in the libraries. They will be. So I think, yeah, it is our report card, and I just would like to congratulate the staff. There's a lot of work goes into it, and I think it's a very, very good document. So just wanted to support the endorsement of the annual report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly agree with the comments that have been made. It's an excellent report, and it goes to show how much work council has undertaken over the past year, which is really great. I was hoping, Mr. Mayor, through you, CEO Mark may just give a short overview of some of the highlights in his CEO's report. It's a really good report, and I think it would be nice to hear some of those from CEO Mark.
Would love to. News in brief, stuff happened. Thank you, councillors, and I was just going to save up to the end, but I'll get it in now as well. The staff, all of the staff across the organisation that put this together, and as in every year, it does demonstrate there is a volume of material that gets done that's very hard for sometimes people to see. And the other bit is it's like the old story about the plumbing. Nobody notices it until it stops working. And there is a massive amount of work that goes on behind the scenes. It's not just the front line. Well, front line is exceptionally important. But as I've said before to councillors, it's those who pay the creditors, it's those who pay the invoices, those are customer service staff that take the requests over the counter. That back office function is incredibly important, as along with the front science staff. The highlights for me this year were, in no particular order, COVID-19 and our response. We actually had our first outside staff depot meeting this morning for some considerable period of time. So as the restrictions continue to ease outdoor, so we could comply with all the COVID requirements. Our organisation was, and I remember the day very clearly for a very long time, 13th of March, when it broke in the media that we had the positive case. I am so incredibly proud of this organisation and its staff with how it responded. It is something that none of us had ever dealt with before. We had a pandemic plan, but it wasn't written with this in mind, and so it was very quickly amended and updated. But the way the staff took to different roles and functions, we continued to function, we continued to deliver services, we continued to repair roads, we continued to empty bins. We continued, even when the libraries were shut. I mean, much has been made of the libraries. Those guys did do a magnificent job. They found new and innovative ways to deliver services. The whole organisation responded in one, and it was just an incredibly, I'm just very proud of the way the staff acted in that space. And we continue to give advice and work with Queensland Health and other agencies as to how we do that. The local government elections were certainly significant, given that COVID was in full swing, and we had a number of the polling booths in council facilities. The post-election statutory meeting was the first televised meeting of this council, and it's been something that was very dear to our heart, and it's great to see it's very dear to the current council's heart as well, as to continue to open up the discussion and the decision-making process. It also stands us in good stead for future disasters, that we've got a facility that we can dial in, for want of a better term, people. We've looked at, Kingaroa transformation, has been lots said about that, but that will be no doubt reported in fully. That's starting to wear into life now as a once-in-a-generation lifetime program. Very appreciative of all the grant funding and assistance that we get. The federal assistance grant is significant, but we actually did make representations this last week at LGAQ. Council is still sitting under its 2014 level of financial assistance through the federal assistance grant, and there's we believe there's an inequality in that a council can go backwards, to be blunt, over a period of time through the methodology, and we will continue to lobby and work. Not that we want more than anyone else, we would just like to maintain our our previous positions, and certainly a little bit more would be nice. And just, it's just, I just keep coming back, as I've said it a million times, this is a good council, and it's a good council because we have got a whole range of very good people working for us. While we have our agreements and disagreements, as any family does, we will continue to do our very best to deliver the services for the community.
Thanks very much, CEO, and very well said. I'd like a round of applause for the staff and everybody involved. And certainly could I acknowledge and congratulate everybody involved, as I said in my report, previous councillors, current councillors, but most importantly our CEO and the staff who've done the bulk of the heavy carrying, the hard work over the course of that 12 months. And we do have a good council. We have a lot to celebrate, and we should celebrate that. And Mr. CEO, would you be kind enough to make sure that the appreciation of council is articulated to all the staff, conveyed to the staff our thanks for their wonderful work. Thank you. Councillor Jones?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just endorse everything that's been said as far as our staff go. They, all the men and women that work here for this organisation are wonderful people, and they do really have the community at heart, and they do want to make a difference. So I really want to, and I do it every time I speak in a general meeting. I congratulate our staff. I can't say or speak highly enough about those and the efforts that they put in. But also like to endorse what the CEO said when we were at the Gold Coast conference there. We spoke to Mark Jemison, the newly elected LGAQ president, that was unaware of our difficulties with dealing with the fags and the level of funding that we get. So he's certainly been acknowledged by that. And I'd also, as you have, Mr. Mayor, acknowledge the councillors that were involved in the last term, that happened to be my first term, the work that they done. Former councillors Height, Flyflesher and Mayor Campbell, they done a wonderful job. And in the short term that I've been involved with council, this council organisation has made some massive changes internally and structurally, and that previous term started that, and it's the obligation of this council, which we are currently doing in the first 6 months of our term. We have certainly introduced a lot of change, and we have to keep driving that, and people need to understand that that change will take a little while to fall into place, but we are continually stepping in the right direction and making big improvements right across the organisation. So this document is, as the councillors have already said, it's a good read, and it's certainly all the information you need. So people do need to understand the amount of work that goes in behind the scenes. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Jones. Very well said. And of course, that's the document there. It's very impressive, not just in terms of its presentation. Congratulations to those involved in presenting such a very professional document, but also, of course, in terms of, most importantly, the contents. When you pick that document up and read through it, it really is an eye-opener, isn't it? It's as to how much the work that's been undertaken by council over that term. And of course, this is just a snapshot. Right. Well, with that, we'll now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour of the acceptance of the annual report? Resolution passed unanimously. Thank you all. Now, Mr CEO, if there's no further business, I'll now call the meeting to a close. Thanks for your attendance, everybody.